interestingly enough, we will still go back to the minor KI case, where IBC continues to say that, look, the results are open for any person out there in the public who wants to go download a form and check the results. But there's still something here, that the Azimio team feels that there was still an underhand in terms of manipulating, you know, the results, even if it's in the public.
You see, the challenge with this particular case is that, number one, we are going to the apex court, which is actually, in my word, a political court. And the case that we have, or rather the cases that we have before this court, are not just before the court, they're also before the court of public opinion. So don't look at everything at face value when you see a petition and some claims and counterclaims. They actually are playing in different courts at the same time. It's both at the Supreme Court and then also in the court of public opinion, for reasons that are not just straightforward. So if you're going to look at this thing from a very straightforward angle, then you lose out. Let me look at this. Let me just bring out something. If you look at the summary of what, especially, we are forgetting all these other petitions, yet they are likely to be weighty, especially Okiya Omtata's one. I looked at the prayers and how he structured it. And I think, being a veteran of courts, he actually has become very surgical in the way he goes about it. I think that is one of the petitions that could easily shape this particular election. But if I look at the demands, let me go back to the demands, since we are looking at the main antagonist here being Azimio coming in. And the demands that are put out there, and if what Orengo then verbalized, the same, what is actually in their prayers and then what he verbalized, means that we are not able to do elections. I know we don't want to have that conversation, but we must have it. The demands that Azimio is actually putting forth means that we will not have elections as granted in the constitutional timelines. Because in our own wisdom, we have made it difficult to have a commission, a new commission, or even appointing somebody under 90 days. It's difficult. If you expedite, you actually will be able to do it within 90 days. The Constitution says that you can do, the rerun should be within 60 days.
Right.
So having a new commission, having their technology looked at, and there are a few things that of course are laughable, because the DCI Forensic Lab is actually very young. It's not mature. The market is maturer than the DCI Forensic Lab. They are playing catch up. That's the truth. They are not yet mature enough to actually be able to interrogate the market. This market is way, way ahead. The boys in Mulot can do much better than the Forensic Lab. That Forensic Lab is still a toddler. So if you're asking DCI to come in, then of course the other side will always argue. Of course, I saw somebody making a joke that mtu mwenye alishinda kesi Hague unampeleka Supreme Court. So some of these demands these guys put in here, you realize that they totally want to force us into a constitutional stalemate. And I'll stick that and move away. I'll actually go ad hominem and move away from the law and simply look at the mechanics of these cases. Number one, when you look at the demands they've put in, the timelines that the Constitution gives us, you realize that it's going to be very difficult for us to do away with Chebukati, audit the system, look at the procurement, do elections within those 60 days, and still have a nation that is intact. Already, if you saw how the case was presented yesterday, like I said, it's played in very different fields. So if you look at it from the Supreme Court perspective, you miss out the other things. Look at the powerful speech that was given by the former Prime Minister, the Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. See the hope that is actually being sold, the rejuvenation that, again, this thing can actually go back to that particular end. So we are at a place where, for Raila, for example, himself a veteran of the Supreme Court, he was there in 2013, he was there in 2017, and now he's back in 2022. You look at the petition, especially the main Azimio petition, and for me, it's actually a fishing one. There is so much. There's an attempt, knowing too well, and it doesn't have stupid guys. It has got very clever guys there. There is a lot of things. Attempting at Article 1, Section 80 of the Elections Act, 140, everything, so that whatever will stick. So whatever sticks, they hang on it and run with it. So what are we looking at? We are looking at a possible constitutional conundrum. And then that is where then the Supreme Court must remove themselves from these messes and choose the Republic over the players within. Because if we are going to play around with this, we will miss out on the timelines. we will not end up having a country at the end of the day. So the good thing with the Supreme Court is that it's a political court. That sometimes you actually have to do the wisdom under Mutunga, as in you look at how things look like and then decide that probably we need a nation and some of these things, because the law is made for the nation. The nation is not made for the law. So we have to get round and actually see how we heal the nation and move forward. Otherwise, if you look at all those things, I've looked at some of the things that are about hackers and everyone else. And, you know, we are not going to cure this disease. The portal is open. The explanations you find out here is fiction, but the fiction has nothing on some of those petition claims. You look at those affidavits and you realize people have not done fiction properly. As in, these things, these things out here are actually serious. So I think Martha Koome has got the biggest burden any Supreme, the CJ of this country has ever held. Mutunga did not have a heavier burden than this, because then the difference was so huge. In the last election, the difference was 1.4 million votes. This time round, it's actually just 233,000. If you would allow me, I will actually tell you this way, that it doesn't matter how the ruling goes, especially for Azimio.
How so? Because
in 2013, Mutunga's court, yesterday the former Prime Minister said that he goes to court because he believes in constitutionalism and everything else. He's not changed his stance. That would be his speech any day. But in 2013, he went there. Mutunga ruled the way he did. He called Mutunga's court Bandia, Kotia Bandia. He didn't like it and, of course, continued. So, of course, he's entitled to his rights. The sunshine clauses grant him that. But, you know, for a person of his stature, by the way, we are not equal before the law. We could be actually, in theory, equal before the law. But there are a few people, if they say a few things, you know, like the father of democracy, bastardizing a Supreme Court, then what then shall the rest of us who have not fought for anything do? Then there is the 2017, where then he still got a favorable ruling in the Supreme Court. And he went on and made extrajudicial demands. I'm calling them extrajudicial demands, but because at that particular time, they were not in the ask they put before the court. This time round, they put them in the ask. So he went on, and then we moved on to secession calls. We had a very long time until we ended up with the handshake. Now we are here. Having looked at 2013 and 2017, if they rule for Raila Amolo Odinga, the most likely thing is that he will not be willing to go to the election if, for example, Chebukati is still there. And some of these things they ask here are not within the purview of the Supreme Court, for example. You just need a judicial review at the High Court on Chebukati's conduct, for example. So probably the Supreme Court will be assigning some of these asks to other courts. Then they refuse to go to elections, and then the cycle goes. We go full circle. We can actually repeat at 2017. If they rule against, it will be so easy. You know, the claim that will be there. You will actually even have videos and stories. Nowadays, with the deep fake, you will be told about how the Supreme Court was bribed and everything else. So you can even tell where this is going. And that is why I'm actually thinking that the Supreme Court this time around has got a bigger burden, and they must choose the republic. They must choose the nation over any other thing.